Order. We start with questions to the Secretary of State for Wales, Ben Lake.
Question number 1, sir.
Minister. Happy St David's Day.
Diolch yn fawr, Mr Llefarydd, and a happy St David's Day, Dydd Gwyl Dewi Sant Hapus. Mr Speaker, this government is committed to improving digital connectivity as demonstrated by our commitment to Project Gigabit, the shared rural network, and most recently the new very hard-to-reach pilots, 2 of which are located in Wales.
Ben Lake.
Speaker, Ofcom reports that some 30,000 premises across the UK have no access to decent broadband, and neither have access to decent 4G signal, including rural areas of Ceredigion like Lledrod, Pennant, Talgareg, Cribin, Sarnef, Amerig, and Coed y Bryn, to name but a few. Will the Minister make representations to colleagues in DCMS to ensure that these areas are prioritised in the next iteration of Project Gigabit?
Minister. Well, thank you, Mr Speaker, and the Honourable Member is right to raise this issue. I would reiterate Project Gigabit, which is a very ambitious £5 billion project to reach the hardest-to-reach areas outside of the commercial scope. Also, alpha trials using satellites, 2 of which are in the Snowdonia National Park. There are, as he'll be aware, also opportunities through the Mid Wales growth deal, but I would be happy to meet him to discuss what more we can do. And in terms of mobile networks, of course, there is the shared rural network alongside the use of the Home Office's extended area service infrastructure.
Michael Fabric.
The Honourable Member for Ceredigion is absolutely right to raise the issues that he has. He's often right, actually. But can I, in contrast, just say that, and I declare an interest, Mr Speaker, that in the Dysynni Valley, for example, in Gwynedd, broadband and fibre to the premises was connected after being a complete not-spot for so many years. So can I say to my honourable friend, can he carry on with the hard work that is going on to ensure that there is gigabit connection within Cymru, Wales?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I know my honourable friend is a regular visitor to Wales, and he is quite right. The importance of broadband, both to people's modern way of life and also to business. So there has been progress, but there is much more to do.
Right. Can I come to the Shadow Secretary of State, Joe Stevens?
Happy St David's Day, Mr Speaker, and thank you and London Welsh School for such a lovely flag-raising ceremony this morning. Mr Speaker, on the subject of digital connectivity, EU structural funds have helped our universities deliver research, innovation and skills development across areas that his government considers a priority, including digital transformation. Many of these projects now face a cliff edge as EU structural funds finish, with 60 projects in Wales due to end this year, putting around 1,000 skilled jobs at risk. What conversations has he had, and the Secretary of State had, with Cabinet colleagues to protect those valuable skilled jobs?
Well, I thank the Honourable Lady for that question, and she is right that academic institutions have been very reliant on EU structural funding in the past. There is, of course, the Shared Prosperity Fund coming forward, which is a need for them to apply to. I know my colleague, the Secretary of State, is visiting all universities across Wales, and I've accompanied him to Bangor University, and I've also visited Wrexham University very recently, and they are adjusting to the new landscape.
Joe Stevens.
Going back to the subject of gigabit, the government's Project Gigabit boasts that it's going to deliver lightning-fast, reliable broadband to every corner of the UK. But the project update that was published this week by his government shows that Wales has the lowest coverage of any of the home nations, just 57% compared, for example, to 73% in England and 89% in Northern Ireland. So doesn't that represent yet another broken promise by the Tories to Wales?
Well, the Honourable Lady is aware that the geography and topography of Wales does make connections, digital connections, more tricky than in some other areas, but she's also aware that actually it's the Welsh Government that have been leading on the rollout of broadband in Wales in conjunction with BD UK, and I agree with her there needs to be more work done to improve those figures.
Liz Saville-Roberts.
Iawn Llefarydd, a dydd Gwyl Dewi hapus I chitha ag I bawb. Happy St David's Day to everybody. Although the Minister might blame the mountains, it's evident that poor connectivity in rural areas is clearly one of the factors holding businesses back. Another one is trade barriers, particularly for Holyhead. Pre-Brexit, about 30% of all trade through the port went on to Northern Ireland from Dublin. That trade has collapsed and it is not protected by green lanes. Stella Line says there does need to be a solution to the disparity. Can he come up with a solution to protect Holyhead from his government's policy?
Well, the Right Honourable Lady recently attended a debate in Westminster Hall that I responded to, where she was making the case for a free port in Holyhead, and she knows that there are opportunities through free ports to boost the trade through Holyhead, as well as other ports in Wales that are also seeking the same designation. So I'd urge her to continue that fight.
Ms Savile Roberts.
I would urge his government, therefore, to bring forward with news, because Wales desperately needs 2 free ports at least. Now, the Prime Minister said yesterday Northern Ireland is in the unbelievably special position in having privileged access not just to the UK market, but, hey, also to the EU single market. This is an excellent argument for Plaid Cymru's policy to rejoin the single market. Why isn't it good enough for Wales?
Okay.
Well, Wales voted to leave the EU quite decisively, and she knows that the situation in Northern Ireland is really quite different to that in Wales, and there's been a carefully put together deal to accommodate that situation, and I feel quite sure that the EU is not in the business of allowing what she suggests.
Jeff Smith.
Question 3, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. With permission, I will answer questions 3 and 4 together. The UK Government is committed to supporting renewable energy generation in Wales, including for innovative tidal stream technologies at Morlais through our flagship Contracts for Difference scheme. I will continue to work across government to ensure we can capitalise on the huge renewable energy opportunities Wales has to offer.
Jeff Smith.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The best way to bring down bills for Welsh businesses long term is to help transition away from fossil fuels. That's why Labour is calling for a national wealth fund, so we can help industries like Welsh Steel win the race of the future. What comparable steps is the government going to do to help heavy industry decarbonise?
Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr Speaker. The Government has an ambitious programme to decarbonise this country by 2050, and we have provided £21.5 million to the South Wales Industrial Cluster to decarbonise heavy industry and support the transition to net zero. And of course, the opportunities for floating offshore wind in that region could be critical too.
Liz Twist.
Mr Speaker, a Labour government will more than quadruple offshore wind to make the UK a clean energy superpower, making the most of the fantastic natural resources in Wales. When will his government match that ambition so that sectors like Welsh offshore wind can achieve their full potential?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And as I mentioned in the previous question, there is an ambitious programme for offshore wind, including floating offshore wind in South West Wales and South West England. There is an intention for 4 gigawatts of power to be provided through the Celtic Sea by 2035, and many more gigawatts into the future.
Like Committee, Stephen Crabb.
Mr Speaker, and on this St David's Day there's lots of reasons to be positive about the Welsh economy, not least the role that Wales will play in delivering greater energy security for the UK and helping move us to net zero. So on that theme, Mr Speaker, would the Minister agree with me? We have a brilliant opportunity with deploying floating offshore wind in the Celtic Sea, but we do need the government to go ahead and give us the Celtic free port for South Wales, and a huge opportunity on Ynys Môn with developing new gigawatt-scale nuclear power.
Well, my right honourable friend is once again a strong campaigner on this front, and I'd also like to add, of course, that there's £60 million being invested in Pembroke Dock in the marine project through the Swansea Bay City deal. So there's plenty of potential for his region.
Sir Oliver Hill.
To agree with me that over recent months we've seen better cooperation between the European Union and the UK over energy. And does he agree with me that the Windsor framework will mean that we can go much further? It will release the potential to have energy security and also the prices hopefully come down as a result of that sort of cooperation, which will help Wales.
Minister.
He's right, of course, that cooperation is always a good thing, and in fact, interconnectors are critical to our energy security. I met only last week a company proposing to connect mainland Great Britain with the Republic of Ireland over the second interconnector.
Shadow Minister Gerald Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We know oil and gas producers have been making record profits for more than 18 months, but his government's paltry windfall tax began in May last year. So can I ask the Minister how his government can justify leaving billions of excess profits untouched while so many people across Wales are struggling with household bills and the rising cost of living crisis?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, mercifully, energy costs do appear now to be on a downward trajectory, but he'll be aware that there's been up to 70% tax taken off energy producers through windfall tax, which is bringing a great deal of money into the Treasury to help to fund the support packages that people are relying on.
Mr. Rees.
Fine, please, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government is committed to delivering high-quality public services. For instance, by next month there will be a record number of police officers serving communities across Wales. And we've seen crime decrease by 10% across England and Wales between 2021 and 22. As she's aware, many public services, including health and education, are devolved in Wales.
Christina Rees.
Will the Minister urge his colleagues to accept the Welsh Affairs Committee's recommendation that HS2 is reclassified as an England-only project? Wales will then receive Barnett consequentials estimated at £5 billion, allowing the Welsh Labour government to continue to expand public transport services. And people in Wales can receive the same benefits from HS2 as those in England, Scotland and Northern Ireland.
Minister.
Thank you for that answer. She knows HS2 is an England and Wales project, is an important backbone of Britain's rail infrastructure, and the important thing for Wales is to be able to plug into it and take advantage of it. We also need to see in Wales a roads review that the Welsh Government has brought forward being scrapped with investment in our roads also.